Hey, Margie here. So many of us have issues with sleep and stress, and we just don't know what else we can do. Well, the good news is that there is a brainwave technology that can help. And we're going to talk about that today on this episode. Our special guest is Dr. Patrick Porter. And Dr. Porter is an award winning author, educator, consultant, entrepreneur, and speaker. He has been on the cutting edge of brainwave entrainment technology for 32 years. His team was voted the best new health app at the 2019 Consumer Electronics Show. His newest brain training platform, BrainTap, is distinctly designed to activate the brain to help people overcome stress, enjoy superb sleep, lose weight, stop smoking, manage pain, accelerate learning, and make any number of lifestyle improvements. So this is something that can really make a big difference. And I'm just very excited to share this information with all of you. So stay tuned. Welcome, Patrick. I'm really happy to have you here on the podcast. I love what you've created, and I'm really excited because we're going to share something with people that's a tool that can really help so many of the issues that I know a lot of us in this community struggle with, such as stress and sleep and so much more. So, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, maybe just explain what this brain tap that you created is. And because let's just be actually, before we even talk about that, stress is a very, very big issue when it comes to bone health. And they've actually done research and shown that the increase in cortisol actually increases the cells that break down bone. So it's a serious piece that I have found that people just sort of poo-poo. They don't really give it the attention it needs. But I found in working with people with for over 25 years with osteoporosis that it's a piece that has to be dealt with. So there's lots of techniques, but sometimes people are like, I've tried everything and it doesn't work. And this brain tap that you've created is really pretty amazing. And so why don't you, for helping us with that, so why don't you just share what it is and how this helps stress?
Sure. Well, number one, people need to understand that your liver, this doesn't have anything to do with bones, people don't think, but it does. Your liver houses 25 grams of sugar. Every time you have a stressful event, it dumps that sugar into the bloodstream. If you don't have enough minerals in your system, guess where it goes and gets them? Your bones. So your bones buffer that sugar to get it out of the system, along with increased levels of cortisol. And then, of course, you're going to have that your pancreas is going to go into shock because it's going to have to keep that insulin drip. There's a lot of negative things that happen because of stress. In fact, everyone knows that even the NIH says 97% of all physical problems are exacerbated by stress. So when you think about stress, it's causing a cascade of effects to happen. Think you are a chemical factory, and we need to be eating, most of us don't eat enough minerals anyway. So the bones are always being robbed to support the buffering in the bloodstream, because if you don't have that pH level in the bloodstream correct, you could die instantly. So it's going to take care of that thing first. So stress is really key. And what's happened, people go, well, what happened? Well, the average person looks at their phone over 150 times a day. And now, depending upon your mindset, if you have a mindset that life is a series of challenges, you're probably fine. But if you look at life as a series of threats, then that causes cortisol, dopamine, norepinephrine, all the things that we need only when we're waking up or if we're fleeing from a danger, but the body doesn't know that. The brain doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So whether it's a negative text or a phone call you just have to deal with, somebody cut you off in traffic, all those things spike that cortisol that causes this cascade effect. And cortisol is a problem, but it's the sugar that's the real culprit. And people go, well, I can't believe I'm gaining weight. I have these bone problems. I don't eat any sugar. Well, it's not always what you eat. Remember, it's what's eating you. So we need to down-regulate that. Now, when we created BrainTap, it was because most people don't know how to relax. In the 80s, when I first started creating it, we designed this for actually pain clinics. But then they came out with opioids. So, it's like people didn't want to learn how to do it themselves. They just want to take a pill. Now we're finding out what happens with that. We have this big opioid crisis because your brain doesn't like other chemicals. It likes its own chemicals. The most powerful pharmacy on earth is between our ears. It's not in the corner drugstore. So we need to manage that. We're designed to have periods of high stress and periods of deep relaxation. Most people never They think I'm going to build healthier bones by exercise, which I believe the second phase, there's three things you need to do to keep your brain health. Number one is nutrition. You cannot think a bad diet. So you got to eat healthy, getting those vitamins and minerals your body needs. And you can't really get it through the foods we're eating. So you've got to supplement in some way. We're not here to talk about that, but just so you know, that's number one. Number two is movement. Like mini tramps, the reason they started it for the space program, right, is because it builds healthy bones. Everyone who comes to my clinic either gets on the mini tramp or does the sonic wave or the power plate, because we know it's going to build muscle and bones. I mean, the main thing is to build bone because you got to have that pressure to do it. And then number three is some kind of brain fitness. So we actually have a program called 60 Up, which is a balance board, which we teach people how to move and exercise to keep their brain fitness, because it actually rewires the brain while you're doing it. We work with brainwave training. So when you think about your brain and what happens with stress, when you're in a high levels of stress over a certain period of time, you start to there's 5 primary brain waves. Where we're talking right now, hopefully everybody's primarily in a state of beta, which is our wide awake reactionary mind. We need that to drive, to react, to basically function in our world. Without that beta, we would be like attention deficit. We would be daydreaming. We'd drop into alpha. And we'd have this brainwave state where we need about 30% of our brain should be in alpha, 45% should be in beta. Then we have this perfect mix in our brain because all brainwaves are present all the time. It's not like one should be turned off. Like even when we're in deep sleep, we still will bounce up. And if we bounce too far up into beta, we wake up. But we want to train our brain to just go to the higher levels of alpha and go back down into delta and do this cycle. And then what most people don't know is that toxins, there's only 3 reasons you'll have a problem with your brain health. Number one is your thoughts. Obviously, if you have negative thoughts or you're under anxiety or you've had PTSD, something happened to you, some trauma, we need to deal with those and resolve those. Number 2, there could be toxins. Now, your brain is designed to heal, but most people don't get the deep level sleep that they need. In our studies, which we can go into more detail with in a moment, what we see is that when you're in deep level 4 sleep, back in 2015, American Scientific actually came out with a whole program that said, the garbage man of the system, they finally found the glial lymphomic system, which just like in our body, we have lymph system all over our body. It doesn't have a heart, so it doesn't have a pump. The only time that it works is when we're either doing deep breathing exercises, walking, bouncing, and exercising. But during sleep, your brain only opens up this glial lymphomic system at night during level 4 sleep. So if you're not getting the deep sleep that you need, you're going to have toxic buildup. That toxic buildup will also derail brain function and create basically a brain that's not balanced, in other words. So we need to get rid of those toxins. So then there could be trauma too. A lot of people don't realize that even 10, 15 years ago, you might have fallen down, hurt your head, or gotten a car accident, and you have some brain trauma, and there's still a hematoma or blood still coagulating in the brain. It never got released because if you never got into that deep sleep, your brain never got to carry out those toxins. So it's a combination. So what we did with BrainTap is we started I'll work on just the app alone, since that people can get that right now if they want to start trying it. Most people in our studies within 14 days improved their sleep by 70%.
Wait,
So
say that again.
most people
14 days.
Yeah, 14 days. That's why we have a 14-day free trial on our app, is because in 14 days, most people will have about a 90% improvement in their sleep, between 70 and 90% improvement. When we did our sleep study with the coal miners in Australia, these are people that never see the light of day, because I wanted to show them it doesn't mean your circadian rhythm isn't off. And we'll talk a little bit maybe about that in a moment, how the circadian rhythm, how the sun actually activates your body's biological functions. It's not just your circadian rhythm. It's basically that sun is a pulsing star that's telling every cell of our body what to do at different times of the day. And if you don't get outside and you don't walk, you don't get earthing, as they call it, grounding, then you're missing out. Your body is not tuned up. We can't stay in the house, sit on our butts, and think our body is going to function right. Our body is designed to move and breathe, and actually we're solar panels. Every cell of our body has something called a chromophore, which is a little battery that's on every cell that absorbs energy from light, sound, and vibration. Just to give you an example with sound, we've all been to parties where maybe we didn't really want to be there, but then they started playing songs from our high school or our college, and that music we started rocking with it, we started getting energy, and then someone comes over and says, I didn't think you wanted to be, what are you dancing for? And well, because you get happy feet, because your cells fill up with energy. Our cells work differently than most humans. most humans, unfortunately, what we do is we fill up our house, then we go get storage units, we fill those up, we just keep storing things. Our cells only have so much room, and once they have enough energy, they actually share them. This is called photobiomodulation. And everything we do actually turns into energy or light. So our cells, with something called our mitochondria, that's transmitting and receiving light. We can measure that. And we can measure how much light a person, we've seen people like when they're pregnant, we'll say, wow, you're really glowing. Well, that glow is actually because their cells are operating at peak efficiency, because they're building a body, right? They're basically doing things. So when you're in love, people say the same thing. So when you're in this positive mood, your cells actually transmit light energy. We now know that light energy is actually what creates what's called the epigenetic system, which means how does our cells show up? And this is going to make sense in a minute to BrainTap, because every cell of our body is listening to our environment all the time. It's saying, is this a safe environment for me? Is there too much radiation? Is there a smell? Is there mold? Is there whatever's going on? Our body is always, and then if it's safe, our body will actually activate its biophotic experience, which means the cells get an instruction to operate at the highest level of efficiency. When it's compromised, or when let's say that we're around mold, or we're around EMF, or we're around all these different things that basically are part of our lifestyle. Nobody's going to get rid of these things today. So we have to figure out how to do it. Our cells downregulate, and it happens through our biophotic system. Now, if we don't have the energy, that's why a lot of people today will say we live in an energy economy, because if we can raise our energy, then our body functions better. And this is true, because if we're always robbing Peter to pay Paul, like we were talking about earlier, if our bones are always being robbed to basically buffer the sugar, the poor health that we're having, the poor foods that we're consuming, maybe the sodas we're drinking, that's probably the number one worst thing you can do if you have bone problems, is to drink soda. Because it just robs the cells of your body. It's, we need to be drinking more water, good water, and maybe putting minerals in it, like Celtic salts or something like that. But while you're doing that, the body needs energy. So what we did with BrainTap is we use sound called binaural beats, which are going to balance the hemispheres. Because if your hemispheres are out of balance, that's also stressful to the body, because we're always trying to get back to homeostasis or balance. So in the process of doing that, we're going to seek out foods, we're going to seek out relationships, we're going to seek out activities. We're basically going to seek out things that are going to cause us to either what we believe is going to bring us into balance, or what we've rehearsed and formed our habits and patterns. So what we know is that if we can feed the right light energy through the eyes and the ears, so when you put on our headset, we've introduced light to it. So the light actually works through something called the biophotic exchange, but it's also frequency following response. To give an example, when you go to the ocean, a lot of people go, oh, I love sitting near the ocean, listening to the waves and watching the light ripple off there. Well, the water of an ocean or a lake or a stream, these all have an evoked potential of 10 hertz. What that means is they evoke the body to go into a state of alpha, a natural meditative state. Think of alpha as the neutral to the brain. When your brain's in neutral, just like your car, it's not going to use as much energy. It's going to basically, it's on the ready, but it's not going to be like in overdrive. Like a lot of people are in overdrive first thing they get up in the morning, but they don't have anywhere to go, but they're revving up their engine and getting all nerved up and anxious. And then the body goes, what am I supposed to do with all these neurotransmitters and all this neuroactivity? And it goes, well, you don't do anything. And then what happens is the body then starts to get dysregulated. So we're going to use light to do that. Now think of mitochondria as the body itself. The currency of the body is called ATP. So just like in our world, to transact information here in the US, we've got to use dollar bills, right? We got to exchange with money. So ATP is the currency of the body. So everything you do is either adding to your ATP bank account or taking away from it. And that includes the people you're around. They've actually proved that. We have what we call drainers in our life and gainers. There are certain people we're around that bring down our energy, and certain people we're around that increase our energy. And we kind of jokingly call them energy vampires, but we all know these people, right? So we want to be doing things that bring up our energy level, because the higher our energy level, the higher our light value, the healthier every cell of our body is going to be. And we're now finding out that we live in a cellular health economy. So we got to it's not just our bones. That's very important, because the bones are what's a lot of people are losing their bone structure because of the poor health and nutrition and things that they're consuming, but also because they're not physically active. One of the worst things you can do for your brain is sit down. If you sit for 2 hours, it's actually you lose 10% of the oxygen to the brain. So that's worse than smoking, right? They say that sitting is the new smoking. Well, it's actually worse, right? The smokers have to go outside now and smoke. They're standing up and walking. So, but I mean, when you think of brain tap, think of it as a way we're all under a lot of stress. No, and there's a lot of social stress. There's a lot of stress in your home. Even they're now saying, hey, they call them sick homes now. People don't even know they're in these homes that are outgassing and causing them problems. Most of the lights we have are not good for our body, but we can balance all that out by retraining our brain, by getting our brain back in order. And it's simpler than most people think. And that's what we created with BrainTap, was a way to get you back to balance. Now we have over 2,000 sessions. So we have very specific sessions, but the reality is that we just need to bring the brain into balance. And in the morning, we need to wake up the brain in a way that doesn't require coffee. I'm not against coffee, and I think you should drink it after 90 minutes to maybe 2 hours after awakening. If you drink it earlier than that, then your brain becomes dependent upon coffee. Anything your body's dependent upon that's outside of itself is going to be a detriment. You don't want your body, you want your body to wake itself up. It has its own norepinephrine, its own dopamine, its own cortisol. You prepare that at night when we talk about like a sleep hygiene program or something. But when you get the right sleep, why would you need coffee in the morning? You just slept hopefully 6 to 8 hours and you should be charged up. You shouldn't need coffee to function. But some people are conditioned to do that, so they do it. But we have a program, it's actually called SMR, sensory motor rhythm. That's the brainwave as we get better looking and more intelligent with age. That's the one that atrophies. So if you're wondering, gosh, what happened to my balance? What happened to my memory? It's not, your memories are still there. Everyone has a perfect memory. It's the recall system, and it has to do with a brainwave called SMR, and that's between beta and alpha. And that's what we train first thing in the morning, because that's when it should be its sharpest. That's why all the studies show, hey, you get more work done in the morning. Now, at 2 o'clock in the
So
afternoon,
wait, let's just start.
yep, yep,
So
okay,
someone is going to try this. There's different levels. So the first level is purely, and which I've done, the app is purely the app, which has all these programs in it, which is really quite amazing how many programs are there. So someone can choose in the morning if they wake up. What you're saying is not everybody needs the morning program, but what are the options that most people seem to use in the morning? So you wake up, you're a little tired, your brain hasn't tell us the different
yeah,
options that are
there's
available.
yeah, there are specific, there's probably about 200 sessions that are specific to AM wake up, but you could listen to any of the afternoon sessions in the morning too if you wanted to. It depends on time. Most of our morning sessions are only 10 minutes because you don't really need to relax. Hopefully, once you've used the brain tap for a while, you'll wake up rested and recharged. You won't need to, have any recovery. But a lot of people, instead of hitting the snooze button, which unfortunately, the average person hits the snooze button a couple of times before they get out of bed, which is not really good for the brain either. You should hit like a brain tap session or do some breathing exercises like breath of fire or some kind of psychological sighs or something like that to get your body and brain synchronized. Then get out of bed, and be ready for the day. And that you really can't go wrong. We have a lot of music only too. If people don't want to hear a voice in the morning or the afternoon or the evening, we have over 400 sessions that are just um, music, some real beautiful music. And we use solfeggio frequencies because our body responds to the frequencies that are around us. And there are solfeggio frequencies and noje frequencies. Those lights in the ears actually change frequencies every 2 minutes so that the brain, in order, think of it like going to the gym. You don't just do one workout. You go around the circuit, you work out different muscles. We're going to work out different brain waves and respond in different ways so the brain gets its exercise. That's why we call it brain fitness. And then
Wait, wait, before you go on. Okay, so people have the basic that they're listening and all these different apps, and it can give you motivation, it can give you encouragement. You really have, I'm a big person that teaches happiness, so I
yeah,
love a lot of the things because, as you said, the average person, 80% of their thoughts are negative,
mhm,
and this is not a good way to go through your life, and there's so many negative health consequences. So we have the basic level that you can listen and really makes a difference. But then you mentioned the lights. Can you just go in more detail what that
Yeah.
step is and why you created that part of it?
Yeah. Every cell of our body has the mitochondria in it. That's the bacteria that transmits and receives light that feeds the cells of our body. And so if you don't have energy there, it doesn't matter what you're doing. That's why most people don't meditate. They don't have the energy to meditate. So we're going to bring energy in through closed eyes and through the ears. All the blood in your body goes through your ears every 3 to 4 minutes. So that means that we can, on each side, we can really, the way light energy works is it's going to be absorbed by the hemoglobin. Then it's going to go it's going to go through the bloodstream. It's going to find the cells that are about to die. They call it apoptosis. And at that moment, the cell is going to absorb that light energy, and then it's going to start the Krebs cycle, or it's going to bring that cell back to life. In the instruction set in that cell is still there at that time. So basically the cell continues to be alive. So, and then basically it can do its thing. It can bring energy to the body. It can detox and all those things. So we can do that through the ears, and we can also do it through the eyes. Now you could have your eyes open, but it's a better experience with them closed. So you just take a little nap. And it's not a lot of light energy in the eyes. It's only 8 LEDs, like your phone is a million. So it's not that much, but it's enough that it triggers a cortical response, which means it triggers a deep brain program that the brain, like when I was talking about the ocean, if you go into the mountains resonate at 7.8 hertz frequency. That happens to be theta. So that produces a neurotransmitter called GABA. The ocean produces a transmitter called acetylcholine, which is the feel-good, happy hormone. So you have these, we're used to being able, that's why when we're around a body of water, we feel good. And when we're in the mountains, we feel relaxed. It's when somebody says, I had a mountaintop experience, there's a reason we have that saying, because physiologically we feel that. So we can't always get to the mountains. We can't always get to the ocean. So what we did is through light, sound, vibration, we can mimic it. That's why a lot of the big thing out there is called biohacking. We prefer to say health optimization, but we're going to basically give people the mountaintop experience in their own home or near the ocean in their own home. If they live in the ocean, obviously you can just go for a walk on the ocean, but we want to train the brain to get out of these stress states. And once you're out of the stress states, the body's designed to heal itself. But as long as you're in stress, in the sympathetic state, the body cannot heal at all. I don't care what you eat, what you do, you cannot heal. It has to be in a state called parasympathetic. And that's the rest, digest, recovery state. That's why people like in sports, like Tom Brady and them, they spend 90% of their time on recovery. And that's why he lasted so long. Most people spend way too much time on trying to build things up, and they're tearing down their body. When our body, we do enough to tear down our body, we need to spend more time recovering. And that's why meditation has been found for a lot of people to be good, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't want to learn how to do it. So we made an easy way that they don't have to learn to meditate. They can just put the device on it. It mimics it. It's not real meditation. Like, if you wanted to learn it from a guru or somebody like that, we're just getting the body into that physiological state. And then the body knows what to do. And then because of the science today, we're able to prove it, because we have a lot of neurological devices now that can show us what's happening with the nervous system, what's happening with the body. And I mean, we do a lot with the balance board, which shows, because as we age, unfortunately, the vestibular system, that's the balancing system of the brain, that goes offline. That's one of the first things that goes offline. And that's the first sign of dysregulation of the brain. It doesn't have anything to do with your muscles. Your muscles have very little to do with your balance, because your muscles don't move on their own. They only move when your brain tells them to do it. So the brain has to be rewired. That's why we have like the 60 up device that we have as our second step. That, I mean, Dan McPhee, that actually has created that for us and helps us at shows with it. He's gotten people out of wheelchairs and everything, because once the body is retrained how to reconnect, just like when we were babies, we had to learn how to walk again. If we don't retrain our brain as we age, or we don't keep physically fit, there's actually BDNF, which a lot of people don't really realize, but your muscles are also a chemical factory that make you feel good. So if you're not most people know someone who was very negative, and then they started physically exercising and they became this positive, glowing person. That's because the muscles of our body can do it too. So you can do it physiologically, or you can do it psychologically. I believe we need to do it both ways, just so we can kind of meet in the middle. And happiness is a big deal right now because, with social media, everybody is trained to be unhappy. The Buddha had a saying, all unhappiness stems from unfavorable comparisons. And if there's any place that shows that more than anywhere else is social media. I mean, that's not reality. I love the Christmas card. I hope you're as happy as your Facebook post. That's because people will, they're not showing the real life, but we can stimulate that through physical activities, through mental activities. And when you do it together, anytime you've done a physical activity, you've got a 45 to 60-minute window of neuroplasticity. What neuroplasticity means for the people that don't maybe know what that is out there, your brain is not programmed like you're not fixed. You're not like a TV that only has certain preset channels. You literally are like a radio that can tune the dial to anywhere you want to go. So your brain can rewire itself. What happens as we age, unfortunately, it's called neural pruning. We actually unplug as we age. We don't plug in. A lot of people have a misconception there. They go, I'm learning, so I'm plugging in my brain. No, as we learned, we actually unplugged our brain. When we were babies, we were totally plugged in. And then we unplug to learn a language. And that's why at a certain point in time, it's difficult to learn languages because that circuit goes offline because the brain wants to conserve energy.
Okay, so I think in this audience, there's so many, to me, it's a tool. To me, people are exercising because we know how important that is for their bones. People are doing balance, they're doing these, but many people are suffering. They're still suffering from two things, as I said, the stress, which I think this is incredible because you can use this, if you're having issues with meditation or you're having issues, this can totally amplify and just give you another way to achieve what you want to achieve. That's going to really make a big difference in your life. Do I have that correct? I mean, that's how I.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, the other issue that is, as I said before, is sleep. It's such an issue. And there are a lot of people who go to sleep and then they wake up in the middle of the night and they just are up for hours. And I hear this complaint all the time. And as you said, we need the sleep to heal. There's so many toxins and there are so many things the body does at night with sleep that's critical for our bones and overall health. So where this device I see can really help people is with sleep. So just tell people, how they could use it, what you're doing, because your voice is very interesting. Like, what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And how does this help them in the middle of the night?
Right.
Like, so maybe
Well,
just give us some
yeah,
background on this device and sleep.
sure. Most people know the children, they'll say they're so tired they can't sleep, right? They're too overworked. Most adults are too tired, they can't sleep. Even though they fall asleep, the body then in the middle of the night wakes up because at 2 o'clock in the morning, everywhere in the world, your temperature increases 2 degrees. Every person on earth. Now, if your brain's dysregulated and it goes to 3 degrees, you start sweating. You start having like hot flashes. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, your body will do this. And so what happens then is the body, once you get into beta, it's kind of like holding a balloon underwater. It's easy to hold it underwater and do your thing. That's like the sleep cycle. But as soon as it pops out of the water, it takes a little more pressure to put it back underwater. That's where you have to train the brain with brainwave entrainment. So stress, what stress does is it causes the brain to dysregulate and operate in a high beta mode, if you will, reactionary mode. That's why people become negative, not because they're negative, but because we're programmed that way. I mean, our genetics, it wasn't too long ago and we were on the food chain, so our memories are still there. We still have those memories. They say that all the genetic memories of all of our ancestors are within us and they're influencing us on a subconscious level. They've done study after study that prove this. We knew things before we were born, that they were basically passed on through genetic memory exchange. So we have to work on that. Like you said, they've done studies and they say that over 80% of most people's internal dialogue is negative because we're trying to avoid being hurt or being harmed or staying safe. It's not because we're negative. It's just that's the way we're just trying to survive. So now that we have to, that's why I wrote the book Thrive and Overdrive, because we need to thrive, not just survive. And thriving means after that workout, you do a brain tap session, you do a meditation session. When you're doing yoga, you don't just jump up and leave, you do the neuroplasticity. That's the most important part of yoga. That's what they'll tell you in India. When I work with the All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, they say most Americans don't even do the most important part of yoga. That's the laying in the corpse pose, they call it, because they just jump up, they think it's for exercise. But that was all to give fuel to the brain. So in order to sleep, we need to feed the brain. And one of the best ways to feed the brain in sleep, and what we do, is hopefully get you to stop eating solid foods 3 hours before sleep, because you will not start the sleep cycle while you're digesting food. If you think about it, we're pretty much a digestive machine from the neck down. So if we don't, and then if we eat a lighter meal at dinner, in fact, as we age, we should eat less and less, not more and more. We're not in the 1700s where the bigger we are, the richer we look and people appreciated us. We now know that there's in fact, in India, they say eat 3 meals a day, be sick, eat 2 meals a day, be well, eat 1 meal a day, be in excellent health. I'm not saying eat 1 meal a day because that's very difficult in our day and age. But at night, eat foods that are going to feed the brain, like green leafy vegetables. If you're going to eat fruits, eat plums and grapes and blueberries, something that are darker in color for the brain. Eat a lot of fiber. A lot of people don't realize how important fiber is, because you might be waking up in the middle of the night because your blood sugar has dropped too low, because your dinner was too high in sugar, and then you had those sugar blues, and so you wake up. So fiber helps to buffer that. We now need to think of eating for our brain, not eating for our body. We used to be, as farmers, I remember in the 70s going to Iowa, where my family's from, and I went out running, and my uncles go, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I got to stay in shape. I'm going to play football." And they said, "Well, why don't you just come out on the farm and work with us? We'll get you healthy." And that's true, but we don't do that anymore. We're brain people now. So sleep, what's really important is when you wake up at night, and this will happen occasionally to anybody, don't give it too much energy. Do what we call a 4-8 breath, which means you breathe into the count of 4. That's going to trigger your sympathetic system. Breathe out to the count of 8. That's going to turn on your parasympathetic. Most people have never exercised their nervous system. And that's one way to do it. And that 4-8 breath can be the saving grace for a lot of people. Now, if you have the brain tap, I always say just turn on one of the brain tap sessions with your earbuds. You don't need to use the lights at night if you don't want to. Just put the earbuds on. And because the brain is used to operating, it doesn't know time. When you drop out of beta, time no longer exists. So for you, yeah, you look at the clock, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What am I doing up? But for the body, it doesn't know time. You tell it the time. So in Silva, which my dad, there was a method of meditation called the Silva method. And my dad was one of the first Silva instructors. So I grew up with this. They call it sleep and wake control. Most people, we used to never need this, because in ancient times, we didn't have Netflix and all these things to keep us up all night. We could, when the fire went out, we went to bed, and by the way, that fire was emitting 10 hertz frequency, because every fire burns at 10 hertz frequency. It was down regulating the brain. So they were like doing an ancient ritual, which was just part of our nature. But also that fire is also emitting infrared light. It's feeding our cells of our body energy. And it's also turning on acetylcholine. That's why if you're in a romantic getaway and you turn on the fire, you might get a little frisky, because you're basically turning on you're turning on those neurochemicals that make you feel good. You're getting a little high on your own supply there. And so, but we can do that for ourselves. Turn off the TV before bed. Drink plenty of water. Just stop drinking water 2 hours before sleep. Now, there is a misconception out there about you should be able to drink a gallon of water and go to sleep and never wake up. We have a circulating circuit in our kidneys that can circulate the water until we wake up in the morning. But if you have a dysregulated brain, you will wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. That's fine. Go to the bathroom. We should be able to go right back to sleep if that's the case. But a lot of people, because the fear, the brain chatter starts talking, and as soon as you pop too high up into beta, it's very difficult to go back into sleep. So it takes some training. That's when you got to do that 4-8 breath again and just keep practicing it. And a lot of people do it right before bed. And then you could add another thing to kind of add a little fuel to the fire. It's a good way, is to think of the things you're grateful for that day, because your brain, whatever you think about right before bed, you're going to dream about. So I always recommend turning off the television, or if you need to watch the television before you go to bed, watch a comedy or something that's light, that's not going to stimulate you too much. most people have fallen asleep to a military movie or something, found themselves in a war, in their dreams, even though they've never been in the military. So we really want to do that. But what the brain tap does, it's going to imitate a cycle of sleep right before bed. That first cycle is the most important because most people, that first cycle, only it can take up to 4 hours to get that first cycle complete because of so much stress and anxiety they have in their body. Your body is like an electric circuit that holds a charge. That's why if we cry or laugh, sometimes we get that discharge and we get that release and we finally feel good or something's happening. But we need to be training our body to discharge without having to have a breakdown. I say you can have a breakthrough without a breakdown, but we have to do that daily. It's kind of like micro dosing, but we're going to do it through breath work. So at night, just start doing that, but then realize that the signals that are in your room. Now, some people are more sensitive to light than others. Blue-eyed people are going to be more sensitive than brown-eyed people because the eyes actually have more mitochondria in them than any other part of the body by square centimeter. So mitochondria, remember, it's going to absorb light and transmit light. So some people, they can't have even one bit of light in their room. They have to have blackout curtains and keep it dark. Other people, they could sleep in a lit room, no problem. It doesn't bother them. So it's not a one size fits all for sleep. But what we found with the coal miners was that as long as they did the morning session, the afternoon session, and the evening session, even with the app alone, in 14 days, they improve their sleep because you're training the brain. It's kind of like using muscles. Like if they're all doing physical fitness, and that physical fitness is helping their mental fitness in a big way. But then just even if you don't have brain tap, just take a moment, lay down afterwards for 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to do anything, but you're doing a lot of neurological work after that physical workout. Your brain is rewiring itself. And that's where you're going to get the benefit of that exercise, not just by doing the exercise. Think of doing the exercise like, using a knife too much. Sometimes you've got to stop cutting with the knife and sharpen that knife. And we need to sharpen our brain and get that blood flow and circulation. That's when that BDNF is flowing through the body and really retraining the body and setting your mood so you can be more optimistic and more positive and more productive during your day.
So back to sleep, the 14 days. So how are people going to use this? How long
We
do
actually
you
have
sleep
a
with it? Or do you just do it before sleep? Just like go into the
yeah,
details because
there's
people are
actually
listening saying, this is me and I'm going to try this tool. That's so nice that you offer the free 14 days so people can see, can this help me? So how are they going to use this exactly?
there's actually a 21-day trial, so you can do the first 14 days is what we recommend. You don't have to do every one of them because they're set up by the day for 3 sessions. Some people just don't have 3 sessions. We recommend setting your alarm for 10 minutes early and doing a session because you'll have more energy in the morning. And then in the afternoon, if you could do a reboot, because just like your temperature increases 2 degrees at night, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it drops. That's why everybody has that coffee, tea, or chocolate at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or tea time, because the body, we're used to being in the Serengeti and taking a nap. Nobody runs around at 2 o'clock in the Serengeti. You're under the shade of the tree. And then at night, you're going to do the evening session. And I've selected 21 sessions for the first 21 days and they're training. So the first session is going to take a little bit longer to take you into delta, the next one, but they take you into delta and they literally drop you off. So you could actually, in the middle of the night, if you wake up, if you're one of those people that wake up like you're talking about, you could just put the session on again, put yourself back into a deep sleep and sleep the rest of the night, whatever 2 or 3 hours you have left, and get that recharge. Every brain tap session is equivalent to 2 or 3 hours of physical sleep. So we've had people that were such poor sleepers that sometimes they would just do 3 or 4 brain tap sessions and get the equivalency of their sleep. But then eventually you want to have real sleep. It can't, you got to have your real sleep. You can't just pretend you're getting your sleep. You've got to get that sleep. And it's really simple to do. It's all laid out there. It's the second tab on the device. It'll say 21-day breakthrough, and it'll coach you through that first 21 days.
I mean, there's so many people I know that this has really changed their life. They've been able, because no one wants to go on not antidepressants, like any, medication, sleep medication if they don't need to. And, there's negative effects and it can affect every cell in your body. So that's what's so nice about this. There's no medication involved and it's just a retraining that can can really make a big difference. But there've been numerous people that are like, "Oh my gosh, that brain tap, that truly both, changed their sleep and their stress." Those are the 2 areas that people have said to me that they've noticed the biggest difference. I found your voice, and the voices are just so calming, almost, it feels like it's almost like hypnotic, because I guess you have been trained in hypnosis, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. My background is neurolinguistic programming, psychology, uh, hypnosis. I'm taking a lot of training. That's one of the things in my field. You never stop learning. There's always somebody coming up with something really great that we need to learn and implement. So yeah,
So that's great. Now, the other thing is, because I'm sure people are listening thinking, "Oh gosh, what about the EMFs?" But you can just download these, correct? So you don't have to, you could just download them, and so you don't have to have the.
right. Yeah, our device has been validated by Dan DeBon with Radiation Nation. We have 0 EMFs in our device. That's because you're not going to listen to it while you're on the internet. The EMF is coming from the phone. So you're going to want to download them to the device, put your phone on airplane mode, and then play it. You just have to make sure you log in, I think, every 7 days to keep the app active. So at some point, you have to be online to download anyway. And then it's going to keep them on your device and refresh them, as you go.
Yeah, no, it's so exciting. I mean, what have you seen? You've been doing this for so many years. You
Oh,
know,
we have some phenomenal results. Like I'll just tell the people we're doing a bigger study right now at Seminole College with the nurses, but we had phenomenal results showing the stress because nurses with sleep disorders, because they have that swing schedule where one day they might be day shift, next they're night shift and all that. And we're getting some phenomenal results with that. And the biggest thing is their sleep. I think sleep heals a lot of things because that's when you incubate your superpowers for the next day. If you don't get that sleep, you just don't feel up to it. But we did a study in Florida that's now in a 100-person study at Seminole College where Dr. Kelly Miller wrote a book called Saving Your Brain. And we took the women in the study within 6 weeks, they were all taken off the dementia scale. They had a 39% neuroplastic change, and they listened just 3 times a day with the app and the headset. Now, you can get even better results we didn't improve their nutrition, we didn't do their physical fitness, we just did BrainTap. So, but in his book, he talks about all the other things because at the clinic, of course, they do all those things. They recommend better nutrition because a lot of people they just as we age, we get a kind of propensity to want more sweets and things like that, and change their appetite because appetites of the mind, hungers of the body. So we can change that. Your body's not really craving candy bars; it's just a habit. So we can change that, and when you start increasing your fiber intake, you don't need it because your blood sugar doesn't fluctuate so much. And so fiber is key as we age, but don't do that too quickly. I should say that if somebody's listening, you want to do it very slowly because the body's got to adjust to fiber intake. And that's why fruits eating in their whole state are much better than fruits that aren't, because then they come with their own fiber delivery system that slows down the reaction in the body. So that's really good. And then we did a study with concussions that is really big right now. And that's how we got in with TBRX, which is Tom Brady's group for recovery with the pro football players, is we did a study on concussions and we showed everybody in the study at the school got medical treatment. Nobody missed out, but 50% of them got brain tap at the end of their treatment. And the other 50% didn't. 1 year later, we went back and did all the neurological testing. And between vomiting, headaches, sleep disorders, all those kind of things, the brain tap group was 30 to 70% better on all levels. 1 year later. So that means they didn't even do it for a year, just 1 year later, because once you get the brain back working, I mean, I still use my brain tap obviously every day, but you don't need to use it every day. As long as you use it every other day or every 72 hours, your nervous system is going to try to reset every 72 hours. So in the clinics that we're in, which we're in about 4,000 clinics here in America, they have their patients come in every 2 days. Or if you're getting like an IV or something like that, you might get a brain tap at the same time. But at home, if you have it, we find that children or adults, they use it all the time. We have so many stories of children that were told they had ADD or ADHD and they don't have it anymore. My first book was called Awaken the Genius because I was held back in second grade. And my dad taught me the Silva method, which was a meditation method of going to level, which is alpha. And they use something called the Silva sound. And that's really how I got into all this was the sound, what Jose Silva did. And then I got to work with a group called Light and Sound Research. And in the 80s, we built out the first portable light and sound machine. And I'm the only one left standing. So the rest of them have went on to bigger and better things in the universe. So I'm here, still carrying the torch. But what I find is that if your problem happens more under stress, if stress exacerbates your problem, then BrainTap will probably help it. If not, like in sports, we're really big in sports because the success and failure is only 6 inches away. It comes within the person's mindset. So if we can, we help Olympic athletes or pro athletes, they're all pretty much the same. They're all really good, but what is their mindset? How are they recovering? And how do you recover after you get hit? Not hit like a physical hit, but I mean, when something stressful happens. And we show that we have a device called the NeuroCheck where we can measure the nervous system, 9 different parameters. And I show the professional sports team, there's a home field advantage, right? When teams are flying across the country. Well, I know why, because your nervous system can downregulate up to 60% just by taking a 4-hour flight. So, and then depending upon how quickly it regulates back, most people, it takes 3 to 4 days. We can do it in 20 minutes.
So what you're saying is this is amazing. And I've heard this for jet lag. You're saying
Yes.
that, yeah, so someone who's traveling, they don't have to suffer so much. They can use the BrainTap and there's specific programs for jet lag. That's so interesting. As well as I thought it was interesting that you mentioned, cognition and dementia. So that's, that this can help that as well. So
Yeah.
there's just, yeah, it's very impressive. And I'm can't get over that you created this
Yeah.
amazing device that's helped
Yeah.
so many people really worldwide.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say in India last year, we were voted Researchers of the Year because of what we did with the NeuroCheck. And we showed how breath work, which is an ancient tradition, and how BrainTap, a modern technology, how they can do the same thing. But most people aren't going to do the breath work because it's a lot of work. You got to do it 3 times a day and you got to actively do it. It takes 45 minutes to an hour, or you can do a 10-minute BrainTap session. But we wanted to show people that, this is something people have been doing since the dawn of history. They to get their body and their brain. In Vedic tradition, if you had a mental disorder, they would tell you to wake up 2 hours before sunrise and sit outside. Now, we don't know how they knew this, or I know it's not just coincidence, but somehow they knew there's more infrared light hitting the planet at that time than any other time of the day. So they're getting red light therapy, but they called it Chronos therapy in the Vedas. So we're just amplifying that with technology today. We're using some ancient traditions to do those things that we've forgotten to do. Dementia and some of the problems we have today, we never had those 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, very few people. I mean, when I was growing up in the 70s, my grandparents and my relatives and I, they're all 90, 95. They're all playing cards and talking. I mean, I don't think anybody ever feared of losing their memory. Now, the biggest fear in the world is memory loss as we age, which is a lifestyle problem, not a physiological problem. Because if you're doing the things physically you need to do, which you're teaching people to do, like physical exercise, that's key to keeping your brain working, keeping that BDNF going.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're meditation, we're breath work, we're exercise, all those things. However, even despite that, whether people aren't taking the time for that or this adds another piece that we can put in that is so important. And I just think, we need that sleep. We need that restorative sleep. We need to decrease our stress. So I think that this is just a wonderful thing you created and something that can really help many people. So I'm excited and I thank you for being here and sharing this. And I'm excited that people can try it and see, is it going to help? Because I just can't get over how many people are living with this issue with sleep and it's so negatively affecting your bones and every part of your body. Is there any last minute things? I know we could talk for hours. You are just such a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge and you've done so much and you've created so much. And I'm just, grateful for you being here. But is there any last minute things you want to share before we'll have all the information on how to access the app and how people can access this? And that's the first step. If people wanted to go more, there's that, as you explained with the lights, and you've created a whole nother level. But the
Yeah, you
best
can go
thing
get
is, yeah.
yeah, they can go get all that education. I just like to always tell people that don't let other people define your health. You know, go out there. The worst thing that can happen is nothing. So the best thing that can happen is you can start sleeping better, you can start having better cognition, you can start living your best life now because you've whatever you've been doing obviously brought you to where you are right now. So congratulations. Let's move forward. And it's always about testing. You know, what I've said is useful for a lot of people. You'll never know till you download the app and try for yourself. You know, it could work for you. And they say that the mind works best like a parachute when open. So just open your mind to the possibility because there is a solution. The brain is designed to heal, the body is designed to heal, but we've got to give it the right opportunities and feed it well, get it moving and breathing, doing these things, and the brain and body will heal itself. So we live in a great time right now. Even though it seems like there's a lot of bad news out there, we have so much evidence pointing to the fact that we have solutions to these problems, and they're really lifestyle problems. So, follow the advice of your mentor here and do your thing, and you're going to find that life can be fun again. It just takes a little bit of tweaking here and
Yes, absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for joining me here and for creating this. I just think it's
there.
an amazing tool, and I'm so happy that we're letting people know about it because it really can make a big difference in their life. So thank you so much, and I look forward to using it more and playing around, and I'll let everybody know how I do with it as well.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Porter and now have some new information on how we can actually retrain our brains to reduce our stress, reduce our cortisol, improve our sleep, and so much more. I think it's really exciting that there's a 14-day free trial. So don't take anybody's word for it. Just try it and see if it helps you because these areas are so important when it comes to our bones and overall health. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.